We have some. Not everybody reads packets. Like that's a pretty good.
That's a start.
One-line summary for. You know how things don't, why things don't happen, and why things are different, but they need to be.
Well, that's a cool.
You know what's the thing, and actually our meeting is on our council. And I don't know where rabbit holes come from or something like that, because ultimately
Yes, I believe Mike's are on.
Are we on YouTube?
Yes.
But that,
Oh, we're not muted. No, I know, we're not muted. No, we're not. We have to be live. Okay. Okay. We are live now. And we are.
Can't find, Gary's retiring. Oh, yeah,
Just a quick reminder for the board, we are live now.
okay.
There's a lot of young families, so you can often two income.
Yeah, who could take the time.
And if the kids are kind of hybrid, you know, someone to be able to work from home, but then also manage the school. Yeah, public service right now.
Online and assemble it at home. The new rule will require a background check before you divide those kids and
CEO session and then we'll just. The big focus of mental health of employees. Ran stepped off and jumped in front of one of his own trains.
that's terrible.
Really, absolutely. So,
You know, as
so
much
we
as I
had
think that's really
doctor talking to
certain
us.
on the surface appetizing.
today.
Hypothalamus, it's cortisol, it has all the parts in it. And especially one of my colleagues, Sam, has a stroke. It falls over right onto the floor.
Get hired.
Gonna take her to emergency. She survived and she's had blood clot.
I don't know if
That's all I
he's
know. So I had to leave and come back.
I don't know what else to say. Okay, folks, I think it's 10 o'clock. We're ready to start our meeting.
So it's existential challenges for us.
Hello, today. The flood on
Everyone to the Monterey Salinas Transit District Board meeting on April 11th. We welcome everybody to our meeting, either virtually or in-house or in person. So I just want to let the public know that there are 3 ways that you can participate in our meeting. One is you're in person, you're actually here in the audience, but remember that you must wear a face covering and will be social distancing in the boardroom. Second is Zoom participation. If you would like to participate by Zoom, you would go to our website and we would have instructions on how to log online. Also, we're on YouTube, but you can't participate on YouTube except for watching the meeting. And lastly, the number to phone in is 669-900-6833 with an ID number. So those are the 3 ways that you can participate in our meeting. And we welcome any public comment through that, through those venues. Okay, so let's go ahead and call to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Okay, City of Delray Oaks,
Here.
or sorry, City of Carmel by the Sea,
Here.
City of Delray Oaks,
Here.
City of Greenfield,
Here.
City of Gonzales,
Here,
City of King City,
present.
City of Marina,
Here.
City of Monterey,
Here,
City of Pacific Grove will be absent today. City of Salinas,
Here.
City of Sand City,
Here.
City of Seaside, I'll call again, City of Seaside, Dave Pacheco. City of Soledad will be absent today. City or County of Monterey. I'll call again, County of Monterey. Supervisor Alejo. Chair Albert, you have a quorum.
thank you very much, Jeanette. Okay, 1-2, Pledge Allegiance. Okay, ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Liberty and justice for all.
Okay, today we have a sort of a large schedule, or so we'll try and move through it and get out at our usual time of 12 o'clock. Carl, can you please review the highlights of the agenda?
I can. And just for you all, I have a meeting in Soledad with our new Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren for the newly created Congress District at noon in Soledad with Mayor Velasquez. So I will be leaving at 11 and Lisa will be taking the chair here when I go, just FYI. And on the agenda, among the usual items, you will find an item to continue the retention of the Sahagi Law Group for legal services related to two cases regarding our SURF BRT. We have rejection of claims as well, 310, 311, and 314. And then you have on items 312 and 313, the report from the Measure Q Oversight Committee informing your board that MST in fact spent our Measure Q funds correctly. On the full agenda, on the action items, we do have a federally required public hearing that is required in order for us to spend federally funded federal funds. We have a new policy, ineligible for rehire policy, that staff would like your board to approve. We have some approval of some federal grant related and state grant related issues for our ability to apply for and receive funds for the low carbon transit operations program. And then we'll be presenting you a concept for a new fare structure to support the COA. And we would be seeking your board to give us approval to continue outreach and public hearings on that. That concludes my review of the agenda. There are, I'm sorry, a couple of closed session items as well. You're right, this is a full agenda.
Yeah, it is.
So let's continue.
Okay, thank you, Carl. We'll go to number 2, public comments on matters not on the agenda. This is for a time for the public to address the board on areas that are not on the agenda. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak. Remember, the board does not take action or respond to any of these public comments. However, we could have staff address them after the meeting. So is there anyone in public comment that would like to speak at public comment? Scott, you see anybody out there?
I am not seeing anyone now.
Okay, is there anyone here? I don't see anyone. So let's close public comment, move to consent agenda. Is there any board members that have a question on 1 through 14, or would you like to pull any of the agenda items? I can't see anyone online. So Scott, you let me know if anybody's raising their hand or.
I will.
Okay, not seeing any questions or anyone wishing to pull an item. Is there anyone in the public that have any questions? I'd like to pull an item for discussion. Scott, do we have anybody out there?
I am not seeing anyone.
Okay, then I'd like to bring it back to the board for entertain a motion, please.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first from Mary Ann and a second from John, I believe. And let's go ahead to a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Yes.
Director Worthy,
Aye.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes,
Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Yes.
Director Pacheco, you had joined. Do you approve? Director Pacheco, are you on mute? I'll come back to you. And Director Alejo has not yet joined, so he's still there. So this motion has passed.
all right, thank you. And once again, I don't think I mentioned that it's consent items 3.1 through 3.14. Thank you, Jeanette. Now we'll move to number 4, recognitions and special presentations. We'll start with 4.1, April 2022 Employee of the Month, Michael Kajobi. And I think, Norm, you're taking that on.
Yes, thank you,
Thank you.
Chair Albert, for the opportunity. Distinguished board members, thank you for being here today. It's my pleasure to announce MST has selected Michael, goes by the name Mickey Kajob, for the Employee of the Month for April 2022. Mickey began his career as a maintenance mechanic with MST back in 2011. Over his 11-year career, he has continued to learn, improve, and hone his skills as a professional mechanic. Mickey has received numerous awards and recognitions for his performance as an MST employee, including 9 safety awards, 7 perfect attendance awards, and other special recognition awards for his exceptional work and contributions to MST's. One that he received back in 2015 was for the electric trolley project, which we implemented here in Monterey Bay. Mikey's supervisors describe him as dependable, reliable, knowledgeable, and professional. Since the opening of MST's King City Operations and Maintenance Division, that's the South County operation, Mickey has volunteered to work at all 3 divisions, King City, Salinas, and then here in Monterey, to fill in where needed, which has been a tremendous help to us as an organization. His efforts have helped MST to fulfill its public transportation obligations to our customers and the communities that we serve. Mickey's hard work and dedication to MST's mission is an example for all MST employees. And I'm pleased to recognize Mickey as the Employee of the Month for April 2022. Please join me in thanking him. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Norm. I'm just curious, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I will. How many years service does Mickey have?
He's got 11 this year.
11 years. Wow,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, the next 2 other people combined, with Mickey, over 80 years of experience.
Wow, that's great. Is he online? I don't see him in the
I
room.
don't see him online.
Okay, well, we make sure that you let him know the board thanks him keeping those buses moving.
Absolutely.
That's probably the most important thing. Is there anybody from the board that would like to make a comment? Anybody in the room? Yes, go ahead. Amy.
I think he sounds like a wonderful employee and ready and willing to jump in at all the different locations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's been a tremendous help to us. We appreciate him.
And being so reliable and not calling out sick. That's
Right.
great. That's even better.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to 4.2, please. We have two retirements. One is Steve Carroll, 40 years, and the other one is Grace Casey of 30 years.
Yes, we do. Steve Carroll is another mechanic who worked in the Monterey Bay division. Steve started his career with MST back in 1981. During and throughout his 40-year career, Steve has supported MST's maintenance department, all of its employees and its customers through the work that he does. Steve was recognized for his safety record. Over his 40-year career, he accumulated 26 safety awards, 8 attendance awards, and he has received 14 written commendations and certificates of appreciation for his outstanding service and other special achievements that he's made. Steve was recognized for his excellent work back in 2012, where he contributed to a special maintenance project. And after 40 years of service to MST and this community, he has retired effective March 26, 2022. We appreciate his 40 years of service, his ongoing support and his commitment to this community and MST.
Wonderful. Is he on line? Do you see him?
I do not see him on.
Okay. Well, thank him for his dedication to our company for 40 years. It's wonderful. Now we have Grace Casey.
Yes, Grace Casey joins us, or Grace is, she's a coach operator, professional coach operator. She's got 30 years of a 30-year career, which began in 1992. Throughout her 30-year career, she has diligently served MST's customers and the community. Grace was recognized for her excellent work performance, accumulating a number of safety awards, a number of attendance awards, and numerous commendations that highlight her outstanding service and commitment to MST and its customers. After her 30 years of service, Grace has retired effective April 8th, 2022. She's been a very good example to all of the employees that she affects, that she's worked with. We appreciate her service here in the community and her dedication to MST and its customers.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody from the board that'd like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much, Norm. We'll move on to 4.4, board member service recognition. Carl, it's been 5 years already.
It has been 5 years.
5 great years.
Yes, time flies whether you're having fun or not, or there's another great George Carlin line that I will spare you. So I do apologize to Mr. Labar and board member Pacheco, because in January 20, we would have provided these awards in February of 2020, and we were starting to already begin our emergency operations center and beginning to slip into what became a 2+ year. We're still responding to COVID, and we allowed that recognition to slip. So we did provide Mr. Labar and Mr. Pacheco their pins, as well as I was able to personally present a pin to Mayor Velasquez, and we've mailed to Yaneli Martinez and Luis Alejo their pins with a notice of thanks for their 5 years on the board. It's that was a big class that came in 2017, elected in 2016. We turned over, I believe, 8 out of 13 board members at that time. So I presented them each a pin with the single 5-year diamond. I have a 4 for 20 years, and there are very few folks like Mr. Carroll, and if you, those of you recall Mike Hernandez, who I don't think we have an 8-star pin. I think we had to give them 2 4-star pins. I don't remember how we handled that, but it gets a little basic getting these pins on, but that's a good problem to have. I just would like to thank the board members for their dedication. And we do have a board member later this year in December that will get a 2-diamond pin, and I'll let you think about who that might be, but we'll wait till that comes up. But we're going to get back to this presenting of the pins again. So
Well,
thank you for all your service. Our staff appreciates what you do for us, and you make us a better organization. So this is a small token of our appreciation and recognition of your time on the board.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carl. Is there anybody in the board that would like to make a comment? Well, it's been a fun 5 years, and hopefully another Well, at least two. So we'll see. Maybe, we'll see. Is there anybody else that'd like to make comment in the public? Scott, do you see anybody out there?
I do see Lorraine has her hand up, but
Yes, I do. I just wanted to congratulate all the board members. Good job. And it's so nice to be surrounded by informative group of colleagues. I thank you all for your assistance over the past few years for me. So thank you.
Welcome, thank you. Is there anyone else on the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to say a comment as well. This is Director Martinez. It's been 5 great years representing MST, specifically the City of Greenfield, as one of the wonderful members in this board. And I would just like to thank every single staff member in MST because you guys make our jobs, a lot more easier when it comes to the agendas being prepared on time. Jeanette, thank you so much. You probably don't hear it a lot, but it all falls back to MST staff that we continue to sit in this board and continue to want to be here representing. So just thank you for that, Carl. And I was hoping that you would bring my pen to the next Greenfield City Council meeting. I'm going to commit you to the spot right now. So I will see you in Greenfield in our up next meeting, okay?
Yeah, let me know the date and I'll be sure to come. I can, if you let me know the date, I'll come out. I always need a reason to go to, I think it's called El Tamasal. It's a great little restaurant in Greenfield. I love to go to.
Okay, is there anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to 4.5. Receive staff report on activities related to COVID-19 pandemic incident response and recovery planning to date and provide direction. Carl?
Yes, can we get my presentation up? Here we are. We're still doing this. So next slide, please. So here we are. We've had a significant decrease in the Omicron surge. We have not had a confirmed case since February 21 of staff. To date, we've had 63 positive cases. With Omicron, we started to see multiple breakthrough cases as well. MV, we had 19 cases. Still, no contacts traced to our work environment, no contacts made with MST passengers. 98% of MST and 100% of MV employees are in compliance with the vaccination mandate that your board put forward, which means they have either been vaccinated or have a reasonable accommodation. We have 3 MST employees out of compliance and no MV employees out of compliance. Those 3 MST employees are within the progressive disciplinary process, various stages as we move through that. We have continued to provide with proof of vaccination, free passes to our passengers, both for MST rides and our fixed route services. With that, MST rides is seeing a rebound of passengers with the reopening of some of the most importantly is the La Casa Adult Daycare Center in Salinas. That is a significant driver of our MST rides program for daily trips, service for Alzheimer dementia patients to be placed while their caregivers go to their day jobs. We are at 8,000, over 8,000 monthly trips. That's the highest since the shelter in place went into effect. Still not where we were pre-pandemic, but we are experiencing new highs. So MST rides is coming back more robustly. Face covering mandate is still in place on public transit, at least through April 18th. Monterey County is still considered, at least last I checked, I was out of town for a week, low transmission risk, although we are seeing, I just read a report, the new variant is seeing some increases in cases, especially in LA County, and I've heard in other pockets of the country as well. So we'll see what happens here. we are actively reviewing internally the policies and procedures that we've put in place over the last 2 years related to COVID, which are some we're starting to roll back as appropriate. And also just thinking this through in advance, should the state of emergency be lifted, we'll be able to move this out in a thoughtful way. And there's a team working on that. It's surprisingly how much we've done and how many changes we've made to our policy, our procedures internally. So I'm really thankful to our staff who've kept track of that and who are meeting and thoughtfully and with intent are finding ways to determine which policy or which practices to keep in place and which we roll back and which we modify over time. So that next slide. So there you see a slow, steady rise in ridership. Next slide. Here we are. We compare to the 3-year average ridership fiscal year, calendar years 17 and 19 to where we are currently. If we were just to compare it to calendar year 19, those numbers would look a little bit higher, close to almost 50 to 60% of pre-COVID ridership. But 17, 18, and 19 included ridership on the DLI. There was a significant amount of ridership on that campus, especially that we are no longer serving. I've had multiple meetings with the latest base commander that came on board during COVID, and there is no interest in them restoring the levels of service that we once had there. So it's going to take some time for us to ever get back to that 17 to 19 average. We are working with the Peninsula College, Hartnell College, and all their campuses, as well as CSUMB, to implement services to increase ridership. Our comprehensive operational analysis, we think, will result in greater ridership. You'll hear a report later on a revised fare structure that we think will increase ridership. And then the SURF project as well that we're planning will also result in increased ridership. So not that ridership is all that we're interested in, but it is something we are interested in. We do need to have people in the seats. It's not all that we do, but we're working on it. So we're not just going to accept the status quo. Next slide. CARES funding and related COVID relief funding from the federal government. You can see that we're rolling through that, and we pretty much spent everything that we've received, and now we're just waiting on reimbursement, and which is a good thing because there were attempts to claw back unspent monies. Should the House and Senate or House and or Senate turn in the next elections, it is extremely likely that any unspent COVID relief money will be clawed back to pay for other programs at the federal level. So I'm happy our staff was able to push these funds out. Next slide. You see that we are, we are reaching what we anticipate our peak COVID relief funding will be in the next couple months, and then we're going to be, we're not anticipating any more COVID relief funding, and so that'll slowly start drawing down over time. But we do have probably a couple-year landing path to get our passenger fares up to replace what we will be missing in those federal funds. So you see a gradual decline down that runway. So we've got time before we have to be concerned about cash flow. And so we have time to work on growing ridership, growing fare revenue, growing other revenues as well to work on this. Next slide. Any discussion or direction from your board as far as what I've just told you?
I do have one question.
Yeah.
The fares, what percentage of our budget is the actual ticket?
So it runs on average between 15 and 20%, just depending on what special project we might have in the budget, but it can be as high as $10 million. Last year, it was only 3% because ridership was so down, and we were using those federal funds to cover that. So that's going to be a significant piece for us to recover. There are legislative programs being put forth at the state level to make transit free. And, you know, that, you know, someone will have to pay for it. It may be free to the consumer, but at some point, you know, it costs money to provide these services. So staff is working through our advocacy groups with the CTA, California Transit Association, and CalAct to work with congressional or state leaders that are proposing these to say, identify where that lost revenue will come from for us to continue to provide same levels of service.
Thank you, Carl. Is there anyone from the board that'd like to make a comment or have a question for Carl? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Thank you very much, Carl, for the report. Let's move to 4.6, receive a MST branding development. What do we have for that, Carl?
We have our marketing and customer service manager, Cuyo Bonita Lopez. And this presentation was provided to the administration committee last month.
Board members, staff, members of the public, good morning. My name is Ikuyo Yoneda Lopez. I'm the marketing customer service manager here. As Carl mentioned, last month, I presented this to the admin committee. And this month, I'm so excited to be able to present it to you because this just means we're taking the right steps and we're moving forward with this. In 2019, it was identified that MST could enhance and improve the way in which we communicate with our community, with our public, through establishing a brand vision. You know, what is a brand? You might think it's a logo, a font, a color, but it's more than that. And so that's what I'd like to share with you today. Next slide, please. So why is it important that we have a vision? We can tell people all we want about bus service and the convenience and times that it's going to save you, but we really need to connect with the community in an inspirational way. Simply a way that we can communicate that really connects with our public and they understand who we are. To the passengers, to our partners, to stakeholders, the majority of our public does not use public transportation. I think about 98% do not use it, but that does not mean that we cannot connect with them and make an impact because we are all part of this community. And something I was thinking about as I saw brand vision, you know, vision to me tells me it's something you see, and it is something you see. That's not a lie, but I think it's more than that in this case. It's a feeling, it's an emotion. And so this vision is really critical to making an impact to the people that we serve. We need to connect with them on an emotional level, and you know, increasing ridership is important, and it's definitely the core of what we do. But we also need to connect with them. That builds trust, and we want our community to trust us in everything we do. Next slide, please. So some examples. You know, I think we've all seen the "Just Do It" from Nike. That's a slogan, that's a tagline, but that's based on something more, something bigger, something more meaningful. So just do it. It comes from bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. No one remembers that. They remember just do it, but it's developed from their brand vision. So that was just an example to help you if you have any questions on that. Next slide, please. And this is how we arrived at our brand vision. So we did work with a brand consultant and we followed a very thoughtful process. And it included doing our research, you know, reviewing past surveys, questionnaires, recent COA surveys that we were able to get a lot of good information from, articles out there about transit. We really tried to get into the mind of the MST rider, the passenger who depends on us, try to understand what their needs are. Why do they use MST? Why don't they get in their own car? And really see how we help them in their daily life, how we play such a big role in their lives. We did a lot of work with that, and I like to call this part the big reveal. Next slide, please. This is our brand vision. Connecting communities, creating opportunity, being kind to our planet. And this is going to go against every lesson in presentation. And no one likes having a slide read to them, but I'm going to do this for this instance. Our values, safety. We care for others in all we do, whether it's safety on the bus, the way we speak to them, how we partner with other groups in the community. Safety is key. Friendliness, welcoming, helpful understanding. Whether it's the bus driver that the passenger sees, our customer service representatives that they buy their fare media from, our accounts payable department that gets a call from a vendor that we use. Friendliness, dependability. That's pretty important when you run a bus service. You better be there when you say you're going to be there. And we are. That's how you build trust, by doing what you say and saying what you do. Diversity, valuing our differences, not just accepting differences, but we value them. We think it makes us better, stronger when we value each other's differences. And achievement, we all want to be better. We can be better, whatever we do. Let's work harder to be better. So these are the values, the beliefs that kind of support our brand vision. And we will incorporate that into everything we do and how we communicate and how we reach out and how we interact with everyone. Next slide, please. And here are the next steps that we'll be working on as we solidify our brand. So today I'm happy to be in front of you to share this direction. We will now develop a rollout plan. We will be working internally, putting together a brand momentum group, some key folks on staff and management, and kind of discuss how we will share this internally through town halls, social media, newsletters, so on, and externally as well through a lot of different channels. This will be a big effort, and you'll start seeing this on buses, on our websites, everywhere, because it's not just words and something we're done with. This is the beginning. You're going to see this. You're going to feel this. And it's exciting to see this coming to this stage, because now we're ready to go, kind of, putting the pedal to the metal, if you will, and getting the word out. And as I wrap up this presentation, I do want to just say that, you don't have to necessarily ride transit or be a user of the bus to care about transit and how vital it is in our community. And I hope that this helps everyone get on board and come with us along this ride. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the board would like to have a question about branding?
Sure.
Yes, John.
Mr. Chair, Tony Barrera.
Tony, yeah, go ahead, Tony. Do you mind? Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you. I really appreciate what you're doing as far as marketing. You say internally you're going to be talking to management. How much input on this marketing does the driver have? Are we asking the drivers how they feel about this?
Well, we're sharing this internally and externally, and there will definitely be representation in the brand momentum group from the driver area, from operations, from accounting, from anywhere, planning. There will be representation, and we'd like to listen to more ideas, because I think, again, more ideas just helps improve things. So yes, short answer is we will be reaching out to different areas.
Yeah, and I think, if I may, Mr. Chair, and I think to Mr. Sidoric, I think the driver plays a vital importance on marketing, because they're the face of MST. They're the ones, if they're happy, that means that they're going to produce quality service at all different levels. So I hope you're taking that driver into a lot of consideration as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just FYI, as we came up with both the brand vision and the values, that process was worked through our management team, not just the executive leadership team, not just me or Lisa or Akuyo, the entire executive leadership team, and a cross section of management and staff were focus grouped, and many of those, I just want to say, some of those management and staff are drivers who've promoted up into the position can very well empathize with the plight of the driver in our system. So we wanted to make certain that we had folks who understood what it meant to be a driver, to craft those words. So that safety and friendliness and dependability and diversity and achievement were all focus grouped, and those were the words that they selected. Those words weren't given to them. We gave them a whole list of things, and it was a group process, and folks who understood what it meant to be a driver were included in that process. So we didn't want to come up with something that sounded cool and sounded nice, but didn't actually reflect what our employees thought, because then if you don't have employee buy-in, we're just blowing smoke. We didn't want to be blowing smoke. So these words and their definitions are supported by our employees, at least, through the surveys that we have done.
Does that answer your question, Tony?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Good. Dr. Gagliano.
Is the visioning a step in a larger branding project? Is that what this is? Is this kind of like a requirements gathering, and then ultimately we're going to be moving to something?
It's interesting. It's kind of in the middle. So back in 2019, when the marketing and communications study was done, this was kind of the final step in saying, with this, you will be really great at communicating. But I see it as the beginning. So it's the beginning of community outreach, internal outreach or in-reach, if you will, within our staff and employees. So, whether it's our website or signage on buses, this is kind of going to be shared everywhere, and we will build on this. So campaigns, taglines, lots of different activities will be built on this new vision.
So if I may, coming up, we have both our comprehensive operational analysis, implementation of that new service plan. As we market that, we'll be using this brand vision to create campaigns that support that. As we enter our 50th anniversary year, this year, in July, will be 50 years of this agency in existence. We'll be using this. As we do things like budgeting and capital projects that we bring forth to your board, we're going to put them into buckets that, is this project connecting a community? Is this project creating opportunity? Is this project helping us be kind to our planet? We're hoping that, we are going to be driven by this vision, because it's been, this was a really interesting process. We took customer data, all the surveys that we've done, and there's a lot of data that went behind this that supports these words. So we're going to try to really incorporate this in everything that we do.
Okay. Board Member Cabone?
Yes, I think that pushing the piece of being kind to the planet, is an excellent piece to have in there. There's right now, the state is looking at the reduction of greenhouse gas, their recovery and resilience. They've got 27 billion going towards climate resiliency and the next generation movement of mobility. They have a federal infrastructure bill looking at $383.7 million for EV, et cetera, everything. So everything that they're looking at is greening of the planet. And I just think that this is a perfect piece to go in there.
Thank you.
Good comment. Is there anybody else on the board that has any comments?
Lorraine has her hand up.
Lorraine. Yes, Lorraine. Are you on mute, Lorraine?
Oops, sorry. I guess I know we've been having this conversation for quite some time, and I know we're in the preliminary stages right now, but do we have any kind of timeline of what we're looking toward as far as resolution of this project? And also, I have to tell you, I'm someone who has been around for a long time, and I can still remember the old ride the bus with us ads that you guys used to do back in the day. So that's telling you a lot, that somebody who was not involved in transit many, many years ago still remembers that tagline. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there because I think it's important, as you said, to be kind and all of those things, but it also means people have to remember and hear things over and over again so that they remember.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. I hope they will remember this as well. We're targeting starting next month. We're working on a kind of a rollout plan now. And hopefully next month we will start sharing it wherever we can, places we can, we will definitely update.
And this does not preclude, a ride the bus with us. And frankly, that seems to be a campaign we can't escape.
That's never going away.
It's never happening. But there may be a refresh. We have an opportunity with our 50-year anniversary to remind people of that again and maybe update it, refresh it in some way. So more to come there.
Thank you. Well, I was talking to my wife about that saying, and my daughter, who's 20, said, that is a catchy saying, Dad. So maybe we should keep it.
And this doesn't preclude, one does not preclude the other by any point.
So the question I have is that logo, that's not going to replace our current logo just for the time being.
That's just for this year because it's our 50 year.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
And so will that go on buses and
buses and
clothing
hats and t-shirts? Yeah.
Right.
It will be placed in a lot of different places.
Do we have a budget for that? All that change or?
It's not going to be a change like to rewrap buses, but we are getting
No, I know
swag
that.
items and yeah.
Okay. Okay, is there anyone else that have any questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Problem.
Okay, we have a public hearing, number 151, and that's a fiscal year 2022 program projects for Federal Transit Administration's section 5307, federally funded projects. And is Mr. Deal here? Matt, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Why don't we, before we open up the public hearing, do you have a short presentation on that?
I do, and I will keep it short because I know we're busy this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, board. Thank you for letting me present this. So a little bit of background on the the FTA's section 5307 urbanized area formula program. This typically provides operating assistance to public transit agencies, and the apportionment varies by year and is based on the population served and performance measurements that we present to them, such as vehicle revenue mile per capita and passenger trips per capita. Initially, when the when the packet was created, we had an estimated full year allocation of 10.5 million. Last week, the full year apportionments were announced, and they are roughly around 13 million and change. We have a new table showing what those are going to be used for. Scott, would you mind putting that up on there? Perfect. And could you zoom in a little, just because it's a little small and I'm very blind. Thank you much. So we anticipate utilizing this funding for a handful of items. As typical, we're going to use a vast majority of it for our fixed route bus planning and operations. And then this year, we're also going to use about 1 million of it for bus and vehicle procurements. In line with prior years, these funds are typically used for capital projects such as bus replacements, but primarily general operations. And these funds will pay for fuel, security guards, and MST employee salaries, to name a few items. They're also used to pay for fixed route service provided by MV. As mentioned earlier, staff proposes that we use a vast majority of the apportionment to continue paying for operational expenses for the agency. Federal regulations require that your board provide a public opportunity to comment on the program of projects for 5307. And public hearing notice was published in El Sol on March 26th, the Herald on March 29th, the Californian on March 18th, noting that the public hearing is today. Confirming with Jeanette, we have not received any written comments. So staff recommends that you conduct the public hearing for oral comments. Subsequent to that, adopt the updated program of projects as shown on the screen for a total of $13,074,210. And then subsequent to that, authorize the filing of the appropriate grant application documents with the Federal Transit Administration. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matt. Is there anyone from the board that have a question for Matt? Matt, with questions about the item? Anyone? I do have one question, Matt, and that is, does any of this money being expended for salaries or any employee enhancement or anything like that, or is it just fixed items?
My understanding is it is getting used for employee salaries and driver salaries as a portion of the operations budget.
Okay, so my question is, if that's a one-time dollars, how do you pay the next year for those salaries? Just curious.
These funds are apportioned on a yearly basis, and so we will get another apportionment next year of similar scale.
But we're not sure what we're going to get in the next year.
Correct. Typically, they're around the same amount each year. Over the past several years, they have been increasing as our population and service has increased. So to go back a couple of years, 2021, we received about 8.8 million. 2020, or another 8.8, and then 2019, we received about 8.3. So this year we did receive a significant amount more, and that's largely due to the Biden infrastructure law that just recently passed.
Right. In the infrastructure bill, there's a 5 to 6 year floor that's established, and Congress can apportion more than that, which has happened in the past few years. So we do have estimates of the coming years that they're not guarantees. It is subject to an annual appropriation process, but there is a long-term authorization for these funds that Congress has reserved for fixed route operations.
Okay, I'm just concerned that if it's one-time dollars, not guaranteed every year, that we're using salaries for one-time
This
dollars.
is, as long as people keep buying gas,
We're good.
we're good.
All right. Anybody else? Yes, Marianne.
Yes, through the chair. So bus and vehicle procurements, will you be, will the agency look at reimbursements for electrical vehicles? I know that I think I've mentioned it before, Embark and Community Power, that they have rebates. And would we need, would the agency need a vendor list to, I don't know if there's anything with certain vendors or anything, establishing that.
So we do procure off of large multi-agency agreements for these types of vehicles. We are currently, 3CE does not have a program for transit buses. They do for school buses. We do work with the Air District to provide us matching funds for electric buses. We do that pretty much on an annual basis. They limit those grants to about $400,000 a year. And we use that to match federal funds. And you will see in an upcoming budget document for the next fiscal year, we're developing I'm calling a sinking fund for zero emission bus transition, where we'll be taking funds and just putting them away for this. You saw in the zero emission bus plan, $75 to $100 million projected cost of transitioning over the next 20 years to zero emission bus. We're going to be putting money away to match federal funds and to really make sure that we have it there over time. So part of this funds will also go into our capital budget for the next year for this sinking fund to help us make the transition over time.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Burnett, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just wondering, I'm frantically looking through my budget document. As I understand from the conversation, this is an ongoing renewed disbursement from the federal government. And I'm just wondering, where would I find the 5307 in the budget from last year? How is it identified there?
It would be under revenues, under federal revenues. And there may be there may be discrete line items. I don't know if we call it out by section though. There are several sections of federal money that we get, 5307, 5339, 5311, and on and on. I'm going from memory, but it would be under revenues, federal funds. We'd have that incorporated in there.
Okay, so as this is a recurring or anticipated that it's a recurring award, so I guess in the last years, it's been around $10 million. So what percentage of the budget does this represent?
It represents 20%.
Okay. So if there is some future change in the federal budget or federal programs in the future, this could have a major impact on operations, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why the federal government does the 5-6 year plan so that we can budget and plan for that sort of thing. The only time I can think of in the past, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. During the outset of Desert Storm, there was a 1% takedown across all federal projects to help fund that buildup. And that's the only time I can remember us not getting an apportionment amount in 20 plus years. So it's pretty rare for us not to get the bottom line authorization. We generally end up getting a little bit more.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is there anyone else from the board that'd like to make a comment?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Actually, Director Burnett and actually you, Chair, asked a lot of my questions. I'm still learning transportation, and so this is really to Carl. Is this typical in transportation to be funding such a large percentage of our operations budget through grants?
For small operations in communities that are under 250,000, it is the regular thing to do. In large, actually large urban areas are federally prohibited from allocating any more than, I believe it's 30% of that to their operations. But we're allowed, because they're eligible for different money than we are. So we're allowed to put this all towards operations if we seem fit. And that's generally the rule for small urban rural. If you even qualify, you have to be in a community over $50,000 to even get that money. But if you're under 200,000, you can put 100% towards operations. Up to, you can do 100%. And then if you choose to put some towards capital, you can.
I mean, as a newbie, I share the concern, but if this is standard practice.
This is standard practice.
Okay, all right.
Hopefully. Okay, is there anybody else on the board like to make a comment? Okay, the next step is to conduct a public hearing for fiscal year 2022 programs and projects. So I hereby open this public hearing. Anyone on the public like to comment, please do at this time.
We do have a public comment.
Someone raising their hand, but I can't read the name.
It is Tate Bosser.
Tate, go ahead, Tate. Yes.
Hi, good morning. I heard that there are some plans to resume a couple bus routes, lines 55 and 86, starting at Gilroy Caltrain Station instead of San Jose, which is totally understandable. And I'm happy that you guys made the decision, but I know it's not processed yet. And I understand you're trying to increase more ridership. So I'm just trying to support you guys on that, especially support getting more bus drivers hired as well. So what I'm hoping for though is that I'm just trying to find out when you'll be able to proceed on resuming lines 55 and 86 to resume operating, starting at Gilroy Caltrain Station and then ending in where they end at in Monterey County. And the other thing I also want to remind is I forgot to add a couple things. One, it's about the highway between Salinas and Keene City. So I'm going to make this quick. I'm hoping there could be also a lane on the highway that's for buses only, and also find a way to avoid any floods in the south area of Monterey County between Salinas and Keene City, so that the bus routes can avoid flooding and avoid canceling any trips. That's what I'm hoping for, so it won't have any further cancellations. So that is all I have.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've chatted with Kate on the phone in the past, and I've actually this past weekend was able to make a personal contact with our neighbor to the north at the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, their new CEO. They have been focused on recovering both from the pandemic and from a very tragic multi-person shooting. And they are now starting to kind of come out of their shell a little bit there, and will be actively engaged with discussions for us to resume service up to Gilroy, and perhaps funding that service for us. Through your board's direction on the comprehensive operational analysis, it was a direction to only serve that area if we could find a funding partner to make that happen. And there is interest, and we are in discussion, and it'll take some time, and we'll continue to report back to your board on that. South County bus service was contemplated, BRT was contemplated in a feasibility study conducted a few years ago. It is part of our long-term vision for a countywide bus rapid transit as we complete our Sand City to Marina leg. And then, the next piece that's most furthest along in environmental review is Marina to Salinas. And then we're looking for funding now to plan the BRT from Salinas downtown through the LSL, and then finally down to South County. So it is part of a longer term vision. But when I say longer term, not 5-year, it would be 10-year or more before we see that type of thing happen. And it would be I think the TAMSI board would be the board to really look at that type of widening of 101 or auxiliary lanes along 101. They would be the ones that would have most input on that, as well as flooding along the roadway as well. TAMSI would be a better organization that can actually do something about that with their funding that they have available versus the funding that we have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tate, for your comments. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to make a comment? Scott, do we see anybody out there?
I do see Jason Gamaton.
I'm sorry, what was the name again?
Jason Gamaton.
Oh, Jason. Jason? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Jason, go ahead.
Yes, are we able to, I know the last board meeting we talked about the mandate. Is that something that I am able to talk about real quick before we head on to anything else?
It's really not.
No, it's not. It's not pertinent to this particular public hearing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any other comments?
I am not seeing any.
No one else? Okay, I'll close this public hearing and move back to a motion. Now, can we take this in 2 motions or 1 motion? David, can we have this in 2?
You can do this. You can
In
combine
one
the two.
motion,
There's no
right?
reason not to.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
I'll go ahead and make a motion on the recommendation. So how do you want to split it? Adopt the fiscal 2000 and then authorize the filling of the appropriate grant?
My understanding is that the chair would entertain that as a single
Yeah,
motion to
single
both
motion.
adopt
Got it,
the
okay.
program
Then that's-
and authorize the filing.
That will be then my motion, is that we will take both of these items here, single motion, take the staff's recommendation for approval.
Okay, great, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll go ahead and make a motion, the recommendation, so how do you want to split it? Adopt the fiscal, the 2000, and then authorize the filling of the appropriate grant?
My understanding is that
Oh, that's you two.
that's the board members passed.
That's what I thought. Do we have a second, though?
Carbone will say.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and I'll just repeat the motion again. That's to adopt the fiscal year 2022 programs and projects and authorize filing the appropriate grant application with the Federal Transit Administration and Caltrans.
That is my motion.
Great. Okay, Jeanette, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, City of Carmel by the Sea,
Yes.
City of Del Rio,
Yes.
City of Gonzales,
Aye.
City of Greenfield,
Yes.
City of King City,
Aye.
City of Marina,
Yes,
City of Monterey,
Yes.
City of Salinas,
Yes.
City of San City,
Yes.
City of Seaside,
Yes.
and is County of Monterey on?
Yes.
Thank
Aye.
you. Thank you. The motion passed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. I think we're gonna have a changing of the guard here.
Yes.
Okay.
As I
Second
mentioned,
string
I
comes
have another meeting. It's,
Great.
we have a lot of money at stake with the federal government right now, so I want to make the best impression for us as
Absolutely.
possible.
Absolutely. So I invite Lisa Remlander to come up and
Always be closing.
take the spot. Thank you very much, Lisa.
We, as a note to that, we need a Lisa Reinheimer placard, which we don't have, so let's get one of those.
Because those are important. though,
They
I'll tell you.
are.
Otherwise, I wouldn't know who I am unless I look at it. Okay, so let's move to the action items. 6.1, approve the proposed ineligibility for rehiring policy. Do we have somebody here that's making that presentation, or is Diane Smith? Deanne, are you
Deanna
here?
was supposed to, although I don't know if she's on. Scott, is Deanna on the Zoom?
Lisa, this is Jeanette. Deanna's out of office today.
All right. I tried to email her beforehand, but do you want me to try to handle this?
If you could, yeah.
That would be awesome. I'll pitch it.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly Halkin, Director of Human Resources and
Thank you,
Risk.
Kelly, for stepping in.
No problem. I'll be the designated hitter for this one. Deanna Smith, our Civil Rights Officer. This is her memo regarding developing an ineligible for rehire policy. This really came from that in January of 2020, Governor Newsom passed or signed a bill that required that you can't deem somebody ineligible for rehire if they had filed a claim of harassment and discrimination. This then led to our staff going back and looking, did we have any policy regarding our eligibility for rehire? And we did not. We had kind of our procedure that we used to determine that. And so that led to Deanna going, you know, guys, we need to put something together. And we met and went through kind of what our standard procedures are. And that's what you see attached in this policy that is on page 55 and 56, going into 57 as well. So 56 actually shows the reasons for why somebody would not be eligible for rehire. These are pretty standard reasons why you would not deem somebody eligible for rehire. And we did do a meet confer on this with not only MSTA, which is our Admin Employee Association, but also with ATU leadership, and both groups signed off as this. We were already implementing many of these things. I'm here to answer any questions that I can try for in Deanna's stead.
Thank you. So both our union representatives have decided it's okay?
Yes.
The policy is?
Yes.
Okay, great. Is there anybody from the board that has a question?
I had one question on the petition. If the person who's severed is severed for any of these 8 reasons right here, does it nullify them to petition for a reassessment, or can they go into a petition having been having I guess qualified for ineligibility?
That is a great question. So it doesn't just preclude anyone from applying for a position. But if they do mark that they worked at MST before, we do try to look them up. And there is a letter and a form that's going to go to these individuals. Deanna has a template of a letter that once they're deemed ineligible for rehire, that will be sent to those individuals. So they know they're no longer eligible for rehire. But a part of that template also allows for them to write back or to question that eligibility for rehire. So there is some type of process for them to go through. And I'm sure Deanna has more in-depth knowledge of that, but there's always a way that you can contest or request a relook.
That was right. That was the point. As I read this, and it's like there's no way you're coming back, but then there's this one clause at the end says, but you could. So
you definitely
Never
could
written
contest
in
it.
stone, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That was.
And particularly because we want to make sure that we're documenting properly why this person wouldn't be eligible for rehire. And so that should be documented in the personnel file. If that wasn't there, then that would open us up that we should allow that person to come back.
Understood.
Okay, Board Member Burnett, I see your hand up, literally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just wondering, in the first paragraph there, I guess ineligible for rehire designation, there is the term circumstances shall be designated as ineligible. I'm just wondering, could we change that to a might or could? It just seems rather inflexible. There are many circumstances where, especially for the first one, a person would resign prior to completion of a probationary period. And I'm assuming that they would have submitted a proper resignation notice, and that this would not necessarily, to my way of thinking, deem them irrevocably unable to reapply or be reinstituted.
Sorry, I had to scratch my nose there. We can relook at that wording and definitely amend that wording, but at the same time, again, there's a template and there is when somebody resigns, they would, there is a note, a document that has to be signed by the department head and reviewed by the department head. And if they were to mark that the person was ineligible for rehire based on these circumstances, they have to justify why that is. So, and then that goes to, my understanding is to Deanna or the compliance analyst position, or the compliance or civil rights department. And they would have to review that. And then there is a letter that goes out to the employee as to that status. So there is a process for that. They would have to be reviewed. And the civil rights officer could potentially even overrule the department head as to the reason for the ineligible for rehire reasoning if it's not justified or documented properly. I believe Mr. Burnett asked it.
So can I ask a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
So it would appear then that the circumstance you just described related to the number one resigns prior to completion of their probationary period, that description is a lot more inflexible than the description that you gave. And I would ask that you take a look at rewording that so that it includes the additional conditions surrounding that. So it's not so cut and dry that, you resign prior to probation, boom, you're done. That there are some conditions where that might be mitigated.
I'm sure if we were to have we could resend this back out to legal for their wordsmithing on this.
If I can comment on that, I'm going to agree with you on that, Director Burnett, because people leave probationary periods for a lot of reasons, and it might not necessarily be because they have a negative problem with their whatever they're doing with MST. So to me, it would have to have something in there about a negative probation period, because that's one of the reasons why we wouldn't want to hire them back to begin with. So I think that needs to be reworked personally. How does the other board members feel? Anybody else?
I think that seems fair, or it's a little bit clearer.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we need to make clearer for this before we bring it back? Yes, board member Barrett.
Yes, define probationary period. Is that, so we've talked in the past about probationary periods for bus drivers as they're taking, as they're learning at the beginning of their job. But how does that term probationary period apply to, say, administrative employees?
Each person, when they first come on to MST or hired, they enter into an introductory period or probationary period. For executive leadership staff, that's 12 months. For management staff, that's 9 months. And for hourly non-exempt employees, that's 6 months, 182 days. When somebody is promoted within MSTA, they only have to do another 6-month introductory period, as they were already part of the administrative group. So that's what's deemed as an introductory or probationary period. I hope that answered your question.
I'm going to go back and just, if I could, on the same thing. Everything in here, 1 through 8, except for 1, talks about an unsatisfactory behavior or something, except for 1, because it doesn't talk about unsatisfactory behavior. So for me, I would be okay with resigns prior to completion of their unsatisfactory probation period. Would there be a reason why you would just keep probation period and not relate it to unsatisfactory performance? I know, Kelly, we're putting you on the spot. I understand that, Kelly. I was just, because that would work for me, because that identifies that they had some problems during probation.
I'm definitely sure that we can rework that and wordsmith that to suit that need of clarifying and making that more about performance than anything else.
Okay. Could we approve this particular policy and bring it back for an amendment? Can we do that?
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that you go ahead and direct that this come back to you on the consent calendar once staff has proposed language change, and then you'd see the entire policy, but to be on consent and only be pulled if there were further questions.
Okay, all right. I'm okay with that.
Mr. Burnett has another comment.
Yes, Board Member Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, the more I think about this, I'm sure it was outlined as to where this came from, what were the cause for this kind of policy. And I can understand circumstances where it needs to be, spelled out. But it would seem that the shortage of qualified applicants right now, the shortage of people in positions now, that this would seriously reduce or could reduce the pool of people to come in and work for MST. So I'm just could you re-articulate the necessity for this policy, and what were the circumstances surrounding it?
Can I make a suggestion on that? Maybe we should table this item until the person that was supposed to present it, not that Kelly didn't do a great job, but I'm sure that Denise could probably answer some of those questions because she's the one that developed the policy. Is that correct? Am I correct about that?
I'd
Mayor,
support that.
Mayor Labor? I see your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I actually just clarification. It was my understanding that related to this issue. One is the leaving before the end of a probation period. It was if you did those things that are later in the policies that qualify you for eligibility. So when I read it, my understanding was if somebody stole money, caused those issues that were listed in the policy, and then quit before the probation, they would not be eligible for rehire. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, the way, you're right, Mike, but the way I'm reading it is that one line says that we can release people from probation, whether it's satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And am I correct? Evaluation?
But we would be doing that because we would have documented one of those other items that is in the policy that would disqualify you. I can understand what you're saying. I didn't have a issue with the policy. And I do think we should move forward with it. I thought it was very clear, but thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right, well, folks.
Mr. Chairman, I'm confident that if staff has an opportunity to work with this, with the original author, that we'll be able to address this and squeeze out the ambiguity of that.
Okay, does anybody on the board not agree with that? Well, let's just make sure we've got it right. Why don't we go ahead and bring it back at the next board meeting then?
For consent or back where we have it
Consent.
placed now? Okay,
Consent.
thank you.
So staff has enough of information from the board to be able to draft some language.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay, do we need a vote to
I think
table
it
it?
would be appropriate to have a
Okay.
vote.
Could I have a?
Labar motion.
On that?
I'll go ahead and make a motion that
Okay.
we bring this item back on consent at the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, second. Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, so I thought I heard Labar make the first motion, but are we changing that to Gagliotti?
I cut him off. Yeah.
I'll remove that. I'm fine with Gagliardi. Thank you.
Okay.
Make a motion. I apologize if I cut you off.
Okay, so let me record this correctly.
Yes, ma'am.
So I got the first motion from Director Gagliotti, seconded by Director Carbone. I'm going to go ahead and take a roll call for this item to be moved to consent on our May meeting. So Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Yes.
Director Worthy,
Yes.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett. I have some background noise. Can you please put yourself on mute?
I have a question on the motion.
Yes, Director Burnett.
So my question is, the attorney indicated that the staff had received proper direction, and the motion is only that it be brought back. And I'm just wondering, do we need to include in the motion that staff is to incorporate into the revised document the changes outlined by the board?
I would accept that as amended as the maker of the motion.
We have an acceptance of the amendment.
In that case, aye.
Okay.
Second, you second. Okay.
Do you want to restate the motion, or are we okay to move on?
No.
Okay. Could we get some guidance, Director Laredo, on what this motion is?
Jeanette, hold on one second. Since there is a motion and they all voted before that, do we have to go back and revote?
I believe it would be
Yes.
prudent to have.
Let's go back and revote, Jeanette.
And
Okay.
I'll restate the motion. Make a motion that we accept all of the inputs from the board to staff. Staff will revise the the language of this, and then it will be brought back on consent.
Are you okay with it?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, Board Member Burnett, I think we've got it square now. We're going to start over again on the vote.
Sorry.
Okay.
Before we do that, anyone else?
Yeah.
Not hearing anyone? Go ahead, Jeanette.
Okay. So I think we got the motion correct.
Okay.
We're gonna take the, what was mentioned by board as far as a revision to the policy, all the comments, and then we're gonna bring this back to the board in May. Did I capture that correctly?
Yes, in consent.
On the consent, correct? We're in agreement.
Yes.
Okay, let's start the roll call vote. The motion was by Gagliotti, seconded by Carbone. Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Aye.
Director Worthy,
Aye.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes.
and Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Yes.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. This motion has
Thanks very much
passed.
for coming up.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And thank you, Director Burnett.
Yeah.
Clarification. I appreciate that.
Okay, let's move to 6.2, approve resolution 2002-30, authorizing the certification of insurance, authorized agent forms, and execution of a low carbon transit operation program projects for fiscal year 2021 /22. Mr. Deal, do you have a report for us?
I do, and we're back.
Let it rip.
The recommendation here is to approve the resolution 2022-30 for authorizing the certifications and assurances and authorized agent forms and execution of the low carbon transit operations program, LCTOP projects. So the fiscal impact here is these state funds will become part of the FY 22-23 budget. About 1.3 million in LCTOP funds are proposed to be used on the following projects. We're going to be doing a system-wide free fares project on Election Day, November 8th, 2022, on Sundays between July 4th and Labor Day. This project may be extended or shortened based on availability of funding and essentially how quickly these funds get used up. We know that, or we're hoping for a big summer this year where we're going to get a lot of service. And so this project may be shortened. And then the final free fares project is going to be for the implementation week of the new network plan following the COA. That's going to be for 1 week's worth of free fares while everyone kind of gets readjusted to the new system and the new fare policy that we have. And then the final project is going to be a set aside for the purchase of zero emission bus and the associated infrastructure for charging. This zero emission bus project is part of a larger rollover project from prior years where we've been able to quote unquote bank these funds for a future cycle and has provided a significant amount of local matching funds for our competitive federal grants. And it makes our applications a lot more competitive, to be blunt. So the policy implications here are the terms of the LCTOP require that your board authorize the filing of the grant application for those funds from the California Department of Transportation. In addition, your board is responsible for the fare structures, and these free fare projects are considered temporary fare changes and must be approved by your board. If you like, I know that we are pretty short on time here, but I can go into a little bit more of the history of this LCTOP program and kind of what we've done in prior years. The big ones are, in prior cycles, we've done several free fares projects, such as the free 40s, where it's free fares in Salinas on the weekends on the 40s. We've also done a couple of projects for purchasing zero emission buses and several other projects of the like.
Thank you, Mr. Deal. Let's see what kind of questions we have from the board, if any. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, Matt, I'm not seeing any questions from the board, so I'm going to take it out to the public. Anyone out in the public have questions? Or comments?
I see no questions.
Scott, do we have anybody? No?
No, sir.
Okay, then I'll bring it back for a motion, please. Anyone?
Move approval.
Great, thanks,
for-
John.
Yeah, to take this, take the recommendations. I'll let anybody take.
I know. I'm looking up here to see if anybody's raising their hand.
Yeah, no, but I'll let,
Let me do it.
sure, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2022-30, authorizing the certifications and assurances, authorizing forms and execution of the low carbon transit operations program projects for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Well said.
That's how you do it
Wow,
right there. I'll second
that. We got a second from John. Okay, is there anybody else that'd like to make a comment on it? Okay, not seeing anyone. Let's go ahead and take a roll call vote, please.
Okay, I heard a motion by Director Barron, a second by Director Gagliotti. And I will go ahead and take roll call. Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliotti,
Yes.
Director Worthy,
Aye.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes.
Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Yes.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passed for the low carbon transit operations project.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks again, Mr. Deal. Okay, let's move to 6.3, review proposed fare changes and direct staff to conduct outreach, including public hearings. Lisa, that's yours.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So back in February, the board approved the comprehensive operational analysis, including a final network plan. And also directed staff to come back to your board with a fare policy, fare change that would support the implementation of that final network plan. So the new network will likely be implemented sometime later this fall or early winter. So this plan requires transfers more than would occur under our existing system. So we wanted to make sure that for those longer trips, people, our customers, our passengers would not be penalized just because we changed the fare network or the system network. For example, a person from Salinas traveling to the aquarium would be required to have at least one transfer, if not two. So we wanted to make sure that the new network didn't penalize them for having to take 3 trips versus 1 or 2. So to approach this dilemma, a cross-departmental group of MST staff looked to review and examine a possible new fare structure to support this final network plan, and put together a summary in the board packet. But by and large, we're some of the higher fares from our transit agency peers on the Central Coast and also in the Bay Area. So we wanted to get on parity with our transit agency peers, as well as understand and be kind to our customers when it comes to this new change. As you saw in the last item, free fares would be offered for the first week of implementation so that people can get used to a new system without having to figure out their transfer, their new transit path. So our existing fares are in 3 categories: $1.50, $2.50, $3.50, depending on which line they take. The vast majority of our customers are using a $2.50 or $3.50 line, representing a certain distance traveled. We have line 3 and the on-call services as $1.50 lines. Line 3 operates in the Monterey Peninsula, and the on-calls are in Marina and the 4 South County cities. So what we concluded is that because of those transfers, maybe a time-based fare would be more appropriate. So we're proposing a flat $2 for 2 hours so that people can get to their transfers. The vast majority of our customers would be able to have $2 trips, including the transfer. There may be a few outliers where an additional $2 would be required based on a super long distance trip. We're talking Paso Robles to the Monterey Peninsula, for example. That would be a $4 trip likely on this scenario, but the rest of folks will likely only have a $2 flat rate. And then we're also proposing that we would reduce the daily, weekly, and monthly pass rates to get us more on par with our transit agency peers. And then to address discounts that we currently provide for seniors, people with disabilities, and veterans, it would be half of that $2. So $1 for 2 hours for our discount passengers. So with the concurrence of your board, we would go out and engage the public in how this change would affect them, including 2 public hearings. Our public hearing policy requires us to have public hearings if we are increasing a fare. And by and large, we're decreasing, but there are some services where that fare would increase, specifically, as I mentioned before, line 3 and the on-calls, although the on-calls are slated for discontinuation as part of the new network plan and our work with the South County cities to provide circulars instead of fixed route circulars. But in the effort of, making sure that we're not missing anybody, we are proposing to go out to public hearings, and we feel like through our normal outreach, we can certainly fit in a public hearing or 2 to make sure that we're covering all bases. So we're looking at the next 6 to 8 weeks, including an online survey. We do a lot of public events where we can hand out postcards with that online survey. We can talk to our customers and what have you, and then schedule a few public hearings, probably on the peninsula because of line 3, and then maybe in Salinas or South County for the on-calls. So with that, I'll stop there and answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have
Yes, Director Gagliano.
Yeah, we have concerns about ridership, and I think by extension, then fares, right? I mean, ultimately. So by reducing our fares, I guess this is a net reduction. Do we anticipate that this is going to increase ridership, and we will make it up?
Increasing ridership is a factor of many different things, one of which is fares, but another of which is frequency and dependability.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, the network plan, because it focuses a lot of effort into some key high frequency lines, will increase ridership more than a fare would,
Okay.
but it's not going to hurt.
Yeah. But I guess then, just being completely simple, if we are reducing our fares, our fare pricing, do we then anticipate we're going to be reducing our revenue, or some? I mean, how do we make up revenue?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer. Okay. Because we're having more frequent service, we'll have more passengers, and then therefore more revenue. Yeah. Theoretically, but I don't know that I've ever seen a transit system that's been able to predict how passengers will react to fare changes.
Okay, that's fair.
Do we have a timeline for the public hearings?
No, we would set them sometime probably in May.
So when do you think this will be back to the board?
As early as July, but there's no real urgency until the final network plan is implemented. We don't anticipate necessarily implementing this, although we could, before the final network plan implementation later in fall, late fall, probably early winter.
Is there? Yes.
Yeah, just a quick one. I was just at a conference with where there was state officials, so the Secretary of Resources and Transportation, and they were talking about the, with the public transit decline in ridership, that they're taking a look at the 400 transit agencies as a network as a whole, and what they can do to relieve some of the burdens. They were discussing that they did bring up MST during the talk, and Sacramento RT doing the pilot programs with payment cards and the multi-functioning, utilizing Visa, MasterCard, or the contactless readers, doing away with cash box. They're wanting to go digital. Is there any way that the rates are gonna link in with the 400 agencies? Because they're gonna probably wanna do one system where they all connect.
Yeah, I think what they're probably talking about is our contactless fare payment system, which is like any Starbucks or grocery store where you can use your contactless card and use the bus. That being said, a fare policy is up to the transit agency. And so and depends on a number of different factors. So I would think that it would be unlikely that MST, because of your board's discretion on fares, would necessarily always align with or have a mandate where we would have to have the same fare policy as, say, Santa Cruz Metro, because their board is a separate policy board in and of itself. So there's probably a little bit of territory going on, and certainly self-discretion at the policy level is important. And I don't think your board necessarily wants the state to tell us what our fares for our local folks should be. So I know there's also a discussion at the state level of having free fares for 3 months. And so we're working with our legislative staff, our legislative advocates, on what that looks like, giving us the most amount of discretion as possible, so that your board, if we decide to take the state up on its offer of free fares for 3 months, we get to decide what that looks like here if we want to participate. So yeah, if I could just add in, I was thinking about Director Gagliotti's thought process. You remember the Carmageddon of Highway 68 roundabout? Well, MST participated in that group in offering transit passes that were really reduced as part of our efforts to combat congestion at $13 for a monthly pass. Thinking, well, gosh, it'll get more people on board the bus. And when we took a look at the ridership versus the pass sales, what we noticed was there was not an increase of ridership, but there wasn't a shift from people paying cash on the bus, fumbling with their dollars and cents, to paying for that monthly pass. That because it was $13, it was something they could, shell out really easily compared to $95 or $190. So that's sort of the tug and pull that we've seen in the past with other fare programs.
Thank you, Lisa. And yes, I absolutely agree. The state is really getting pushy on the with the cities and the different jurisdictions. So totally agreed.
We'll move on. Anybody else on the board? Okay, how about out in the public? Scott, is there anybody? Oh, Mike, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Mike.
Not a problem, Chair. Lisa, thank you for the presentation. I do like how personally it seems like the structure leads to it is more beneficial to buy that monthly pass. So when you do the public meetings, I'm hoping you'll be able to show what the cost of a car for a month is versus the pass. The average payment, the average insurance, average gas, those types of things. So it could really highlight the value of that monthly pass. Thank you, Chair.
Good point, Mike. Okay, let's see, Board Member Burnett.
I apologize for being especially chatty today, but I did have some questions. First of all, thank you, Lisa, for the presentation. And I guess I missed it somewhere. The breakdown of the funding, our budget as it relates to the different sources of revenue, fares collected, grants, other funding mechanisms. Could you remind me again of what percentage of our total revenues relate to actual fares?
Sure. You had that earlier question about budget, so I happened to look it up on my phone. So in FY21, our fares were 1.75 million, and we're estimating in FY22 that they would be 2 million. So just a little over, 300,000, around 300,000 increase. And that's, let's see, that's page 1 of the larger portion of the budget where it's an 11 by 17. I could try to do that percentage off the top of my head, but I can only.
That's close enough. So I'm just wondering, is this part of a comprehensive review of revenue? And that is to say that, are we anticipating, any kind of asking for bond measures or, asking for funds from state, additional grants? Is this part of a, sort of a comprehensive effort to review all of our funding sources? And one of those is a fare increase.
So I'd say that this effort is largely tied to the implementation of the comprehensive operational analysis and how that will affect our customers. In our budgeting process, that's when we do our more comprehensive review of our expected revenues over the next 2 years. We transitioned last year to a 2-year budget instead of a 1-year budget for planning purposes, which really helps. I guess that would be the most comprehensive answer for you. We don't necessarily have a the budget is really the place where we look at our revenues and how fares are impacting revenues, but by and large, they're not at the moment until we can get some passengers back.
Okay. And one final comment I want to make, there was some comment about the efficiency or the economies of a monthly pass. And I just want to remind this board that there are many people in our community that don't have large, the amount of money to purchase a monthly pass. It would serve them, it would be, give them a reduced overall transportation expense, but the way you have to pay for it up front, essentially in buying the pass, puts them out of the market. So I'm just wondering if in your consideration, there might be some other way of making the monthly pass available, but giving other options on how to purchase it rather than purchasing it all up front.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. And certainly with the example of the Highway 68 roundabout and the deeply discounted monthly pass, it points to that concern. So in our proposed fare structure, the monthly pass would be reduced by $25 a month. That being said, what I'm hearing you say is that $70 is still a lot of money to come up with at one time. And
right.
Yeah, no, and that's a fair point. I would say that by and large, what we're trying to do is move people from our passes, our closed loop system, into our contactless fare payment system, where that could help alleviate the problem. And there are products out there that people can get that are contactless that aren't necessarily tied to a bank per se, where people can slowly add monies into their contactless card. And then therefore, the fare capping that we have in place with the contactless payment system automatically kicks in for them. So if they're, reaching a daily limit, any trip after that, they're not getting charged for, or the weekly limit or the monthly limit. That then answers the question of, well, how do we get these folks into a better system where they're not necessarily having to have that $70 up front, but they're paying it over time?
So one suggestion, there was a transit, I believe was in Virginia, and what they allowed, so if you bought, 4 passes, 5 passes a month, and you had your 4 tickets, the 5th was, was essentially comped, and that was how they were able to, obtain that monthly benefit without actually having the money up front. So it's just a suggestion.
Thank you for your comments, Board Member Burnett. So my last comments on this is, as Board Member Gagliardi mentioned about, because we're not really raising rates except for the transfer routes, they seem to might be a little bit more. Maybe when you present it back to us, we have a budget of what we're losing, sometime a cost analysis of some type, cost benefit of how this is going to hit our budget. Okay,
We'll give it a shot.
all right. Since we don't have it's not an action item, it's just a review. We'll move to number 7.
Mr. Chairman, you do need to direct staff to conduct the outreach by public hearing.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Apologize. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion, please, to direct staff to conduct outreach, including public hearings?
Labar, make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Board Member Gagliardi. All right, can we have a roll call vote, please, Jeanette?
Hey, Director Barron,
Yes.
Director Gagliardi,
Yes.
Director Worthy,
Aye.
Director Martinez,
Yes.
Director Labar,
Aye.
Director Barrera, Director Burnett,
Yes.
Director Albert,
Yes.
Director Barrera,
Yes.
Director Carbone,
Yes.
Director Pacheco,
Yes.
and Director Alejo.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passed.
All right, thank you. We'll move to number 7, reports and informational items. The general manager is not here, and I just spoke to Lisa, and she said she doesn't have a report. His report is on page 81, and the federal legislative advocacy report is on 111, and the state is on 113. So we're gonna, if anybody else doesn't have any questions, because I don't think our CEO is here, so I'm gonna move. Does anybody have any questions at all? I don't think so. Okay, let's move to number 8. Number 8.1, reports on meetings attended by board members. Is there any at the MST expense? Anyone go to any conferences recently? I don't think so. Not seeing. Is there any board members, 8.2, any board members have comments or announcements? Except for the CTA Spring Legislative Conference. Make sure that you talk to Jeanette if you're going to attend that conference. Does anybody else have any comments? Okay, seeing none. We'll move to board member referrals and future agendas. Anybody have a referral for future agenda item? Okay, not seeing anyone. Let's move to closed session item. We do have 2 closed session items. One is 9.1, conference with Monterey Salinas Transit and ATU labor contract, and 9.2, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to 54956.9B. Case Francisco Martinez versus MST District Court case not assigned. Okay. Is there anybody in the public that have any questions or any comments on closed session items?
I'm seeing none.
Out there?
No comments.
Okay, so we'll adjourn to closed session. We're going to be in the back room?
Yes.
Okay, great.
of everything.
Oh, the meeting is in closed session. Mhm. The supervisor isn't online. I'll play that stuff.
Are we all here?
I believe so.
I think so. Okay, thank you. Welcome back from closed session. I think we,
Mr. Chairman, announcing out of closed session as
Thank
to
you.
both items. The staff presentation focused on process, responded to questions from the board, but no specific reportable action was taken.
all right, thank you very much. Our next meeting is May 9th at 10 a.m. Remember, you still have 3 ways public to participate. So I call this meeting